If a zombie apocalypse broke out during your class field trip and you were surrounded by your idiotic classmates, what would you do? We're stuck out at BFE with no way of calling for help. If any of us are going to make it out alive, we'll have to scrape together as many brain cells as possible to survive. Or at least enough to keep from shooting ourselves in the foot at every possible turn. I'm gonna break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the juiced up zombies in UNHUMAN. Bever is in need of some extra credit, and you know what that means. An extra credit field trip. Of course, to get there, she'll have to survive a brief car ride with her best friend, Tamara, which doesn't sound so bad until you see how this chick drives. Way to keep your eyes on the road there, Danica. Oh well, serves him right for not looking both ways. Fortunately for Tamara's safe driver discount, roadkill Randall shakes it off the second he realizes who's behind the wheel. Yes, I'm sure a lifetime of back problems is totally worth brushing off a car accident to ham it up for your crush. Face it, dude, your only chance with her is if you milk this for all it's worth. If I were you, I'd get back on the ground and start writhing around in pain. Really play up that sympathy card. However, just when Randall thinks he ran into romance, the popular kids cruise by to remind him of his station in life.
Hey, I didn't mean to hit you right there.
What were you aiming at?
Wow, I was aiming for your head.
Keep that up, and he'll be saying the same to you in the hallway next semester. Having had a good laugh, the girls leave the geek to his fate and get back on track, arriving at the bus just as the insufferable Mr. Lorenzo's rounding up cell phones. Yeah, no way I'm trusting my lifeline to society with this tool, especially knowing our little scholastic excursion takes place out in nature. It should be simple enough to tell him we don't have one, which for some reason only Ever thinks to do. Too bad she's not smart enough to actually be lying about it. Sure, whatever, screens are destroying civilization. You live in an age where it's possible to purchase a tiny supercomputer with prepaid service for less than $100 at Walmart. Just pick up a shift somewhere if your mommy won't add you to the family plan. It could literally save your life one day. And wouldn't you know it, that might be today, because it turns out Tamara isn't the only one around who sucks at driving.
You wanna go? Cause we could go right now!
Jesus Christ, it's Jurassic World all over again. Gotta swerve to escape the blindness. It's almost like he was trying to get everyone killed. Then again, with a bus full of bratty teenagers and Lorenzo breathing down his neck, the temptation must have been real. It seems the fun's just getting started, as all of a sudden, someone or something starts stomping around the roof. And that's not all. Before the danger can reveal itself, an emergency broadcast message bellows out over the speakers. Evidently, there's been a chemical attack of some sort, which would certainly explain all the fog that seemingly rolled in out of nowhere. Well, except for the fact that this is hardly the kind of densely populated area one would expect someone to target. Seems like a waste of a war crime if you ask me. Whatever the case, without any information to go off of, we need to treat this like the real deal. First order of business is stuffing up any and all vents and crevices with whatever we can find, most likely clothing. By the looks of it, some of the gas already made it inside, but fleeing into a dense cloud of indeterminate size isn't a great idea, especially with an unknown creature prowling around the area. I mean, I guess whatever it is probably wouldn't fare any better in the gas, but I'd rather not find out the hard way. Whether it's the zombie apocalypse, freezing winter, or you're simply far too ashamed of your out-of-shape to be seen heaving in public at objectively low levels of effort, there's no excuse to not exercise with the Yesoul spin bike, an affordable Peloton alternative for only $6.99. No need to leave the comfort of your living room. Just hop on, use their app to cast a scenic ride at a coastal route in New Zealand or Greenwald, Switzerland, join a guided virtual class, or if you have deep psychological trauma, you can just hit Just Ride and stare at your performance metrics while pedaling with murderous intent. No judgment. With a 32-inch screen and 8 watts of dual-channel audio, all three options are equally immersive. Depending on how many demons you're willing to confront, there's 100 levels of resistance adjustment and a 45-degree elevation angle adjustment to fit your strength program. It comes with a competition seat and SPD pedals with toe clips and straps to keep your feet on the pedals. You can even use the 360-degree rotating screen for a seamless transition from cycling to yoga. When you're done, you can instantly monitor your exercise data, including distance, time, calories burned, speed, odometer, cadence, and more to track your workouts and see how or if you're progressing. Yesoul provides a 1-month full refund or replacement guarantee, as well as a 12-month warranty. To get your own Yesoul G1 Max, use code NerdExplains10 to get 10% off. Next up, and this won't be popular, we need to fashion some PPE out of clothing to help filter out any contaminants. Not so bad, right? Yeah, here's the thing. Among the substances most available to non-governmental actors for this application is chlorine. So just in case, we should take our improvised face coverings and urinate on them like our forefathers did in the Great War. It's not foolproof, but absent a case of M50 gas masks under the driver's seat, it's pretty much all we got. Once that's settled, I'm heading to the front of the bus and fishing out a phone out of the bag to call 911. Sure, if it's truly a wide-scale attack, they'll probably be too overwhelmed by other calls to send help, but it's always worth a try no matter what. I mean, the mere fact that Mr. Lorenzo didn't immediately think to do this after the bus ran off the road demonstrates not only his total ineptitude as an educator, but also as a human being in general. And just wait until you see what he does next. Remember all that noise on the roof? Well, look who's come for dinner.
Watch and learn. Are you all right, friend?
I wonder what the lesson was here. Probably something along the lines of never pick up hitchhikers. Either that or it's about acting decisively to restrain your more idiotic group members before they expose everyone to poison gas and or face-eating metalheads. As for where we go from here, it's time to get tough, people. I know watching a grown man get half his face ripped off is scary and all, but the alternative is running out into the cloud. And while it didn't seem to slow the attacker down all that much, it might have something to do with his bizarre eating habits. If I'm the bus driver right now, I'm grabbing the fire extinguisher he's legally required to keep nearby and bludgeoning this weirdo until the twitching stops. Might have to do the same with Mr. Lorenzo, you know, for safety. Oh well, I guess we're taking our chances with door number 2. Never mind that it was just a single unarmed man versus like 12 of us. Better to just abandon our only sanctuary from the agent of unknown lethality and go running aimlessly into the thick of it. Yeah, don't even bother covering your faces or anything. Just breathe deep and think about the rabbits. It'll all be over soon. However, by some divine intervention, Randall spots a nearby tweaker motel the students can post up in. Well, the ones we care about anyway. The rest apparently just stuck around to get munched on. I'm sure we've seen the last of them, right? Of course, now that we found ourselves a creepy, dilapidated tetanus museum to post up in, everyone immediately splits up to go poking around the maze-like interior for weapons and build materials. Anyone got a problem with that?
Everyone's going in different directions. Let's go, Tamara. I'll bring her back.
Yeah, what is this? Your first abandoned building? Seriously though, this dump looks like something from Condemned Criminal Origin, and there's no telling if we're actually alone in here. Not to mention the fact that this place is far from airtight. Sure, none of us have started convulsing or puking up our insides yet, but there are some chemicals like mustard gas that can go hours without taking effect. Until we know for sure what we're dealing with, we need to stick together and find an interior room deep within the structure we can fortify, preferably on the top floor, as chemical weapons are often denser than air. Oh yeah, we'll also want to remove our clothing during this time as it may be contaminated, thereby prolonging our exposure to the gas even after we've left the danger zone. Hey, it's not my fault this is happening. Do you want modesty or do you want to live? From there, we just hang out quietly until this whole storm literally blows over, at which point we can focus on the other half of this equation. I get no one wants to use the Z word right now, but Rocker Boy sure had all the hallmarks. Whatever his deal was, we have no idea if there aren't more bath bomb enthusiasts prowling around the area, so we need to keep an eye out for potential weapons. I mean, it's not like I expect to find a Left 4 Dead weapons cache lying around, but even a few 2x4s would be better than going at them empty-handed.
Woo, good fun, Red. And up to code.
Bruh, seriously, you found a perfectly crafted spear, and your first thought is to use it to reinforce the door. Take a look around. This place is entirely indefensible. Even if you manage to secure a single point of entry, there's countless more ways they can file through. It's basically late round COD zombies in the sense that boarding up the windows is at best a minor inconvenience for them, and at most, a complete waste of time. Even worse, because you won't even be earning points towards a mystery box. Right now, our only chance of holding back the horde is to make sure they don't know we're here in the first place. And that means, as far as we're concerned, there's only 2 kinds of people. Those of us on the inside, and those that are pretty much already dead. Case in point, young Braceface limping around out there.
We can save her. There he is.
Yeah, Yeah, getting serious 30 Days of Night vibes on this one. For real, this is the oldest trick in the book. Wound one and let their agonized screams draw in the rest for a multi-kill. Besides, even if this freak show lacks the cognizance to set this up, he clearly already sees her. So only a complete and utter moron would think she could be saved without giving up her hiding spot. Hey, great work. You totally saved her. Did you guys seriously learn nothing from what happened with Mr. Lorenzo? The moment someone in your group states their intentions to do something fatally stupid, you need to dogpile them and hold their mouths shut until the opportunity passes. Oh, and just to make things worse, it looks like the bus drivers crossed over to Team Zeke. Fantastic. You know, this would be a great use case for the spear if someone hadn't it away the second we found it. A lot of good it did, holding back a human battering ram. Still unable to comprehend their overwhelming numbers advantage, the students flee deeper into the building and barricade themselves inside the Jackson Pollock suite. Gotta wonder how a place like this would still have power and working glow sticks. Okay, clearly someone came through here recently. Let's hope whoever that might be is sincere about all those welcome signs. Then again, I'd rather not meet anyone who enjoys bumming around this hole. Either way, we'd better find some weapons fast, because it turns out we're not alone in here.
Wait, Ryan!
Yeah, group hug and all that. Here's the thing, if he could get in here, then so could the zombies, which is why we should have started clearing this room as a group the second we got inside. And sure enough, here comes the freak parade. Only it looks like there's a few new members in the form of our fallen classmates. Better find a way out quick. In the meantime, the larger and stronger members of the group need to kick it up a notch with some crowd control. Without weapons, we'll have to resort to hand-to-hand, like Danny and Hunt. However, these new recruits don't seem quite as agile as the other two, so we might be able to rip down some of that plastic sheeting everywhere and wrap it around their heads for a little hockey punch action. Lucky for us, Randall's still on a roll. Too bad it wasn't fast enough to keep Hunt from getting dragged off to the other side. Now down to only 7, the gang runs a little bit farther before stopping in yet another unsecured room. This one even creepier than the last.
They chose us.
Weird. It's almost like you're a bunch of generic high school stereotypes. I'm joking, of course. This isn't good. It seems whoever's shacking up here has been keeping tabs on us, and judging by the inclusion of a Ryan dummy, this is extremely recent. Come to think of it, if his mannequin is up, why would Hunt's still be around, unless the person who put these together left before he got? You know, right around the time Ryan joined our group. Not to mention the fact that he just happened to stumble upon our exact location in a massive complex. Maybe walk us through how you made it off the bus one more time, because right now it's looking like you might have had a hand in all this. That still doesn't explain the zombies or the apparent chemical strike, but it does mean we should keep an eye on him going forward, and that pretty much goes for all our fellow survivors. Just saying, there's been an awful lot of coincidences today, and we shouldn't be taking anything for granted. In any case, sussing out the imposter is going to have to wait, because it turns out the zombies haven't quite forgotten about us yet. Well, it's about goddamn time. Where was all that raw animal instinct when there was just one of these things back in the bus? At least they have sense enough to go for the coup de grace. Although, we might want to find something a bit more robust to hit him with. Sure, he might look dead now, but given our general lack of information, I'd feel a lot better if his head were rolling around the floor right now. Unfortunately, a quick search of his pockets doesn't produce a cell phone, although our findings do certainly explain his terrible driving. However, it seems the syringe wasn't purely recreational. And judging by Danny's rapidly deteriorating condition, I'd say whatever was in there is pretty fast acting. Damn! Ooh, yeah, don't look, JC. We're gonna have to beat your boyfriend to death with mannequin pieces before he becomes a liability. That said, who's ever heard of a zombie virus that spreads by injection? I mean, I guess it'd be just as effective as a bite, but are we really supposed to believe a mindless, reanimated corpse retained the dexterity to pull out a needle and jab someone with it while rolling around on the ground? No, this doesn't add up at all. I'm starting to wonder if the bus driver wasn't in on it the whole time. After all, he is the one who crashed the bus, and he pretty much just stood there doing nothing while Mr. Lorenzo was getting snacked on like a foot away. Oh, well, I guess now's our chance to ask him, because it turns out Randall's flimsy double tap didn't quite do the trick. Hey, looks like our Danny problem just solved itself. Oh, no, never mind. He got back up. having lost yet another character, Ever decides enough is enough. The way she sees it, the only way out of this nightmare by leaving the building and going back for their phones. Only problem is, the gas still hasn't dissipated. Nah, everyone's already forgotten about that. The real issue is that Randall really enjoys playing the leader, and he's not about to let someone else take the wheel. Well, that, and there's a decent chance they'd all be brutally killed. Fact is, the whole reason we chose to hold up in this pile was to get out of the mist, so I definitely wouldn't make a run for it until that clears up. Once that happens, I think a hybrid approach is best here. After all, it'll be a lot easier for 1 or 2 people to slip out undetected than all 6. Everyone else can find a room to barricade and sit tight for a while. Ultimately, this is the approach they end up taking, with Ever and Steven going for the phones while everyone else stays hunkered down. I gotta hand it to them. Firebombing the van was a good distraction, but waiting until dark to head out is where you lose me. Sure, it'll make them harder to see, but the same goes for the zombies. Plus, good luck navigating a dense forest at night without even so much as a flashlight. This would normally be a problem if they weren't the main characters. They actually find it immediately, but it's not quite the W they were hoping for. Turns out, at some point, all the phones got smashed to Wait, all the phones? How is that even possible? Alright, either these are the smartest zombies we've ever encountered, or we're looking at the mother of all senior pranks, because this right here was definitely no accident. The trip isn't a complete loss, as Ever suddenly remembers the basics of disaster survival, and checks the bus's radio for news from the outside world. Evidently, this chemical attack wasn't all it seemed to be.
This message is transmitted at the request of...
It's a tape. Someone set this up.
Yeah, and I'm thinking I know who. God, Steven was in on it this whole time. Guess that explains why he was so quick to join Ever's rescue efforts. Had to make sure she couldn't actually succeed. Oh, and that's not all. Here comes Randall to incriminate himself while loudly discussing the plan, along with none other than the head zombie himself, some random local burnout named Chip. Well, you all know what this means. So, we find out Randall and Steven were sick and tired of getting slurpeed by a bunch of dumb jocks. So, they concocted an over-the-top scared straight plan to show them all who's boss, and win over a couple ladies in the process. Of course, they couldn't do it all by themselves, so they brought in Chip and the bus driver to make sure it all went according to plan. After deliberately crashing the bus, the driver would play the emergency broadcast tape, at which time Chip would show up in costume to get the party started. From there, he would inject all the quote-unquote rando students with some kind of psyop serum to turn them all into mindless drones they could whip into a zombie-like frenzy. Meanwhile, Randall would ensure the others made it into the abandoned building, so he and Steven could run around playing Chris Redfield while the others looked on in awe. Now, you're probably wondering why 2 grown men would even consider wrapping themselves up in some teenage fever dream. Well, it seems they both had a personal bone to pick with Mr. Lorenzo, which is where things started going off the rails.
I said subdue Mr. Lorenzo, not bite his face off.
They need to believe it, and I delivered, okay? Full commitment.
Oh, okay, Brando. You realize that little stunt left your DNA all over the wound, right? That means, even if by some miracle you guys manage to make it out of here, the instant someone in your family does a 23andMe, you and everyone else running this dumpster fire are gonna wind up behind bars for the rest of your lives. Well, except for the bus driver, but that's because he already checked out. As for the zombies, the plan was to let the green stuff wear off under the assumption they'd all just forget what happened and move on with their lives. And they would have gotten away with it too, if it weren't for the plan being so incredibly stupid. First of all, this entire ordeal hinges on none of the other students sneaking their phone in at the very beginning, something you could not have possibly controlled. Second, what if one or both of you got seriously injured in the crash? Not to mention the possibility of everyone rushing Chip and stomping his lights out the moment he got on the bus. At that point, you'd have to pretty much call the whole thing off and just go with it, or jab everyone with a goop and hope they all forgot about it. Speaking of which, unless this halfwit personally conducted rigorous human trials with this crap, there's absolutely no way he'd be able to predict how all these different people might react to it. For all he knew at the time, some of them could have been allergic and died on the spot. Either way, betting the house on it working like some kind of amnesia potion was painfully optimistic. When it comes right down to it, there's literally no way this scheme could ever have succeeded. It relies on too many things working perfectly to even have a chance, not to mention cornering the world's supply of dry ice to create 12 plus hours of fog across this massive area. For Christ's sake, whatever happened to staging a purse snatching or faking a major illness? I could think of a million ways to generate artificial popularity that don't involve mass poisonings and bus crashes. And if it's just about getting revenge on the popular kids, it's called time. Go ahead and check in on some of your classmates who peaked in high school. I'm sure they're all doing great right now. Of course, Randall and the gang are way too deep to turn back at this point, which is why things are about to get messy.
You really think plans like this don't have backup plans? This is the contingency plan. This negates any and all human error.
Yes. I'm sure Plan B is every bit as well thought out as the original. Since they can't count on the zombies to forget everything, Chip has them all caged up for the final showdown between good and evil. The idea is to get them all jacked up on back alley Mountain Dew and turn them loose for Randall and friends to cut down in self-defense. You know, cause a pile of hacked up bodies all containing the same mystery substance isn't gonna draw an enormous amount of police and media attention. Stupid or not, it's really bad news for young Ever, as she's seen farther behind the curtain than anyone else at this point, which is why, instead of immediately pumping her full of enough Minotaur to put Ozzy down, the two masterminds leave her alone with Chip and just assume he'll take care of her. I mean, it's not like your futures depend on it or anything. Fortunately for Ever, her plot metabolism allows her to shake off the dose while the would-be executioner is getting properly motivated, but it's not enough for her to make it out in time. They should have tried crawling under the seats to make yourself harder to spot. Oh well, I guess that's it then. Looks like the bad guys are taking this one. Have fun winning prom king and then spending the rest of your lives in constant fear of being found out. Nah, you know Chip's just gonna toss her around like a rag doll until she lands next to something she can hit him with, like this boombox. Ugh, finally. I hated that song. Now, obviously, she's gonna heroically run back to try and save the day. But for the love of God, at least try searching Chip's body for a cell phone you can use to get some backup on the way. Sure, they gave you the rundown on the bus, but there's no telling what's going on in there right now. And with these morons at the helm, pretty much anything's possible. Speaking of which, back inside, Randall's finished psyching up his canned horde for the main event. All that's left to do now is rally the troops and have Steven open the cage at just the right time. However, just as he's about to free the beasts, you-know-who comes in out of nowhere and knocks him on his ass, throwing herself in the line of fire right as the Crusaders enter the room.
Ever? Oh God! She's one of them!
Yeah, saw that coming. I mean, you can't exactly blame someone for thinking that when it looks like she just crawled out of Raccoon City. It's a good thing Ever is still lucid enough to blow the lid off Steven and Randall's insidious plan. Otherwise, this might have ended up with her own best friend tragically misreading the situation and giving her the Dark Tide treatment. Of course, it also helps they didn't bother juicing up Danny so he can back up her story. Now on the defensive, Steven grabs a syringe and just tries the same thing over again. Ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Only it turns out he opened the cage door after all. Say what you will about their smooth-brained scheme. They whipped up some pretty convincing zombies, at least enough to dish out a little poetic justice. As for Randall, dude has like 3 false death scenes before they finally manage to keep him down. All because no one here's old enough to remember rule number 2. Check this out. First, he gets knocked clear across the room by his own crush. You know that's gotta hurt. I mean, I can honestly understand why they might have thought that was the end of it, considering she hit him hard enough to get him airborne. Still, dude somehow shrugs off the TBI and comes back for more, this time slashing Danny across the chest after he heroically leaps in front of Tamara. Don't worry though, he only slashed him. I made an entire video a while back explaining why that's not such a big deal. Of course, JC doesn't know that, which brings us to false death number 2, Gordon Freeman edition. Okay, at this point, I gotta wonder why no one thought to at least separate him from the broadsword. He already shrugged off one devastating head injury. What makes you think he won't come back after that one? And sure enough, here he is for round 3. Looks like it's Ever's turn this time. In keeping with the fitting punishments, she straps up with Chip's Fauci Kruger glove and dodges, ducks, dips, dives, and dodges her way past Randall's brain-damaged sword swings to administer the final dose. Okay, this one they should have seen coming. I mean, the needles look like they just barely grazed his scalp. She didn't even get any skull penetration with that. See, look at all the green lighting. Now he's got superpowers. Not that he didn't at least already have Deadpool regeneration with everything he's been through so far. Seriously, what is it gonna take to put this scrawny teenager down for good? Do we have to have Donnie Donowitz come show us how it's done? Nah, they got him this time. I promise. It just takes 4 girls simultaneously beating the crap out of him, followed by another beating from Ryan ending in a body slam, and then a good old-fashioned Mordhau from ever using his own sword.
Did I have said something cool?
Please, no, let's just get this over with. Having foiled her classmates' sinister plan to disrupt the social hierarchy and freed all the randos to return to their lives of obscurity, Ever and friends emerged triumphantly from the ruins to hopefully earn that extra credit. And with that, the field trip is finally over. Oh, and on the subject of people inexplicably surviving shit that clearly should have killed them, guess what? Randall and Steven, totally fine. Not only that, but it turns out Chip is still alive, and Brace's girl, and even the bus driver. What gives? Are you telling me that after all that, not a single person bought the farm? I mean, what about Lorenzo? Nope, still fine. Everyone's fine. In the end, literally everyone survived, even the bad guys. I honestly don't know if that's ever happened before. However, had even a single one of the students thought to sneak their phone on board the bus, they could have uncovered the hoax early enough to bypass the slums entirely and summon help. Otherwise, had they immediately resorted to extreme violence after Mr. Lorenzo got face munched, Chip would have been pretty much powerless to stop them all, thus sparing everyone the hours of torment that would follow. Moral of the story, there's no such thing as zombies, for now.